I returned to the place everyone warned me about. The town looked smaller than I remembered, almost fragile, as if it could collapse under the weight of silence. The sun hung low in the sky, painting the buildings in a dull orange glow. I walked slowly, listening to the crunch of gravel beneath my boots. The air smelled of damp earth and decay, a scent that seemed to cling to my skin. Windows stared at me like empty eyes, dark and unyielding. I remembered the stories people told. Whispers of shadows moving on their own. Doors that opened without wind. Footsteps following travelers who never returned. I paused at the edge of the main street, noticing how quiet it had become. The wind did not move the leaves. No birds sang. Even the air felt heavy, pressing against my chest. My own heartbeat sounded loud in my ears, echoing in the stillness. I walked forward, feeling the walls of the buildings closing in around me. The ground beneath my feet seemed to shift subtly, as though the town itself was breathing. I saw a flicker of movement in a broken window. I stopped. My stomach twisted. The shape inside was indistinct, like smoke or shadow. It moved toward the corner and vanished. I told myself it was nothing. Yet every instinct screamed that it was not. I reached the old fountain in the square. Water did not flow. The basin was filled with a black substance that reflected my face in a warped, mocking way. I leaned closer. My reflection blinked first. I recoiled. The town seemed to shift around me. Streets I remembered were not there. Alleys I had never seen appeared suddenly, lined with walls that pulsed as if alive. A whisper floated past my ear. It was my name. I spun around, but the street was empty. The shadows stretched and twitched unnaturally. I tried to step back, but the ground felt sticky, like walking through thick syrup. The buildings began to lean toward me. I could hear faint laughter, hollow and distant, coming from all directions at once. My legs trembled. I wanted to run. I wanted to escape. I could not. Something cold brushed my shoulder. I froze. Turning slowly, I saw a figure standing in the middle of the square. It wore a cloak that seemed woven from darkness itself. No face. Only hollow emptiness where eyes should be. It lifted one hand, beckoning me forward. I felt an irresistible pull, like the town wanted me to step closer. The air thickened around me. Breathing became a struggle. I could feel the weight of unseen eyes pressing into my back. A whisper returned, closer this time, harsher, more urgent. It was not my name. It was a command. I tried to move backward. My feet would not obey. The figure began to drift toward me, not walking, not floating, but sliding across the cracked stones. The ground beneath me pulsed with every step it took. Panic surged through me. I wanted to scream. My voice caught in my throat. I reached for the only alley that led away from the square. Shadows surged ahead of me, blocking the path. They pressed against my skin, cold and heavy, almost tasting my fear. The figure stopped at the edge of the shadows. It raised both hands now. The air split with a sound like glass shattering. Light warped around the edges of the square, turning everything golden and black at the same time. I could feel reality bending. My mind screamed at me to turn, to run. I did not. I stepped forward because I could not resist the pull. The figure did not speak, but I heard it inside my own head. Every memory I had of safety, of normalcy, was stripped away. Only the town remained, and it was waiting for me. I stepped closer to the figure, my legs heavy and unsteady. The ground beneath me no longer felt solid. Each step sank slightly, like walking on a floor made of thick clay. The figure did not move, yet it drew nearer with every heartbeat. The shadows surrounding the square thickened, stretching long fingers toward me. I could hear whispers in every language I did not know. They twisted around my mind, pulling at my memories, at my sense of self. I tried to shake them off, but my thoughts were no longer my own. I felt dizzy. The air was thick with the smell of iron and something rotting beneath it. A faint humming began in the distance, low and vibrating, like the sound of 1,000 unseen engines. It grew louder with every step I took. I realized the sound was coming from inside me. I pressed my hands to my ears, but it did not stop. The figure raised a hand. I expected to feel cold, sharp pain, but there was only pressure, like the weight of the town pressing directly onto my chest. I fell to my knees. The shadows moved faster now, swirling around me like a living storm. I could no longer distinguish the ground from the darkness. The buildings leaned closer, their walls groaning as if alive. I saw glimpses of movement in the windows, faces that were not faces, mouths opening and closing with no sound. I wanted to cry out, but no voice came. A hand emerged from the shadows and grazed my arm. It was icy, yet alive. The figure took another step forward. I felt time slowing, each second stretching into eternity. The air became thick, almost gelatinous, making every breath a labor. I tried to crawl backward, but the shadows held me in place. The whispering intensified. It became a chorus, a multitude of voices all screaming at once in a language older than memory. I felt my mind splintering, pieces of me breaking apart and dissolving into the darkness. The figure extended both arms. The air between us shimmered, warping like heat on asphalt. I felt myself being pulled forward, unwillingly, as if invisible hands gripped my body. I struggled, but the shadows had fused with the ground. I could not move. My heart pounded violently, each beat echoing through my entire being. The figure hovered over me. Its emptiness seemed to pierce my soul. I saw flashes of the town's past, moments of terror that had been whispered about but never witnessed. People vanishing without a trace. Shadows swallowing children. The fountain spilling black water over anyone who approached. I realized with horror that these were not just stories, they were warnings. Warnings that I had ignored. I wanted to scream, to fight, to wake myself from this nightmare. But the figure's presence sapped my strength. I felt my limbs growing heavy, my vision narrowing at the edges. I was no longer standing on solid ground. I was floating in darkness, tethered only by the sensation of fear. The shadows moved closer, coiling around me like serpents. I could feel them burrowing into my skin, into my mind. The whispers became voices I recognized. Family, friends, strangers, each voice warped into a plea, a warning, or a threat. I realized I had returned to a place that existed outside time. A place that consumed anyone who came back. The figure tilted its head, as if observing me, judging me. A cold wind rushed through the square. It carried whispers of what awaited those who disobeyed the warnings. My mind was flooded with images, endless corridors of shadow, doors that led nowhere, faces that stared with hollow eyes. I wanted to close my eyes, but they refused to shut. The figure raised its hands above my head. The shadows around me wreathed and formed shapes, human, animal, things I could not name. They reached for me, each touch sending a jolt of icy fire through my veins. I felt my memories slipping away, leaving only the fear. The whispers became commands. Step forward. Step closer. Surrender. I wanted to resist, but my body moved on its own. The square stretched endlessly, the buildings melting into darkness. I realized the town itself was alive. It had been waiting for me. I had thought I could walk through it, observe it, return and leave unscathed. I was wrong. The figure was no longer in front of me. It was everywhere. The shadows were everywhere. I felt myself being lifted off the ground. The air around me shimmered and twisted, colors bleeding into each other in unnatural patterns. A high-pitched ringing filled my ears, drowning out everything else. I could no longer feel my body. Only the weight of the town, the shadows, and the figure pressing against me. I sensed movement behind me. The buildings bent and warped, closing in, as if the town wanted me to disappear completely. I saw faces in the walls, screaming silently. The whispers became screams, echoing in my mind. I realized the truth. I had returned to a place that had no intention of letting me leave. It was patient. It was eternal. It was hungry. The figure extended one final hand. I felt a pull stronger than gravity. It dragged me forward, into the darkness, into the town itself. I wanted to resist. I could not. Everything I was, everything I knew, was being pulled apart and absorbed by the town. The shadows merged into one endless void. And then, silence. Absolute silence. I was gone. And the town waited, waiting for the next person who thought they could return. Time lost all meaning. The darkness stretched infinitely around me, pressing against every part of my being. I could feel the town, the figure, and the shadows merging into one living entity. I was no longer separate from it. Fear consumed me, but beneath it, a strange clarity emerged. The town did not merely trap people. It fed on their ignorance, their curiosity, their defiance. I realized why everyone had warned me. I had returned not to a place, but to a force older than memory. A force that existed to remind those who dared enter that some boundaries are eternal. The figure's hand hovered above me. I expected pain, but instead, I felt a pull, not outward, but inward. Into myself, into the memories and moments I had tried to forget, the choices I had made, the fears I had ignored. I saw my own life from above, every regret and every fleeting joy. It was overwhelming, but there was understanding in it too. The town wanted me to see, to know, to remember. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the darkness loosened its grip. I was back at the edge of the square. The sun had shifted. The air was still thick, but no longer suffocating. The shadows retreated, curling back into the corners of buildings. The figure was gone. The town looked smaller, quieter, almost ordinary. Yet I knew it was only a surface. It had not changed. I had changed. I stumbled through the streets, each step heavy but deliberate. The memories of the darkness lingered, etched into my mind like a scar. I felt a weight lifted, yet carried. A warning I could never forget. I exited the town. The gravel crunched beneath my boots, familiar and solid. Birds sang in the distance. The wind moved the leaves. Everything seemed ordinary, and yet, I knew the town watched. Always. Waiting. I turned back one last time. The buildings stood still, silent, unassuming. Nothing seemed wrong, but I could feel it, the pull of the place that everyone had warned me about. I would never return. I could never forget, and that was its victory. Some places are not meant for return. Some warnings are not meant to be ignored. I walked away, my heart heavy with the knowledge that curiosity has a price. And that some places keep a piece of you forever. The town waited, and I carried its memory like a shadow that would never leave me.